So you heard a couple of minutes ago someone making the case for why university tuition should not be free, despite the fact there's a brand new study out today suggesting exactly the opposite. It says that, in fact, universities should be free in the province of Quebec, and it makes the case as to why it should be. It also makes the case as to how inexpensive it would be to actually go ahead and do that. Eric Martin is a researcher at the Institut de recherche here in Montreal, part of this study. First of all, Eric, thanks for being here.
Hi, hello.
I wanted you to hear, we had someone on just a couple of minutes ago asked about the same question who's very much against, and I'm sure this is not a surprise to you because, these stories have been out for a while now, who do not like the idea of free. And when I pointed out your figure, which was, I think, 0.0092 of the budget, is that what you said actually goes to education here?
It's under 1%.
Okay. Here's what he said when he quoted that figure.
First of all, let's get the numbers straight. In their press release, they say 0.009% of the budget, 0.00009. They're off by either a factor of 100 or 1,000, depending on how many zeros.
Okay, that's his take. Is he right?
Yeah, there's a typo in the press release, but it still doesn't change that it's less than 1% of the total budget of the province.
Less than 1%?
Yep.
So where's the compelling case to make it free?
Well, I guess if you look at two things, the first thing is we're currently living a big inflation situation. This year, if we had indexed the tuition, it would be high by about 8.2%. So the government had to intervene to limit this raise to about 2.8. So this shows that the current indexation policy is not working. The second thing is that Biden in the United States today, President Biden announced that he would have to intervene to eliminate the student debt. About $10,000 or $20,000 student debt had to be eliminated. So you see, in the U.S. right now, we have a situation where the student debt is out of control. The argument here is that if you look at what's going on in the U.S. or in the United Kingdom, the high tuition policy is causing a lot of student debt in a context where people are already struck by inflation. So we look at other countries like France, Germany, or Scandinavian countries, and we see that they have free tuition. It works for them. They're able to afford it. And so we asked, well, could we do the same in Quebec? And we calculated it's about $1.2 billion, which is indeed less than 1% of our total provincial budget. So there is no technical reason you can't do it. The only reason we're not doing it is because we're in North America. And here we have a mentality that it has to be seen as a private investment where the individual is spending money to buy a diploma. But if you see it as a public service like we do in Europe or Scandinavian countries, even Denmark, they have a student salary. You're paid to go to school for about 6 years. So that's totally the opposite of what we do here. We make people get into debt, contract loans with banks. In Denmark, you get paid to study. You have money to pay your apartment. So there's two ways basically to do it. Either you think it's an individual thing where people have to get into debt, lots of debt. In the United States, it could be like 100,000 debt, 200,000. It's not rare to see that. Or you do it like the European way, which is universal access, much like healthcare. It's free in Quebec, healthcare. Why couldn't we do the same for university? Well, we argue that it's totally doable. So I guess the only reason we're not doing it is a matter of which theory that you apply. If you're more into like an individualistic mindset, so with some economists like Milton Friedman, I guess you'd see it like more the American way. But if you think more in a social democratic way, you do it the way European countries do. A good example is Germany. Germany introduced tuition in about 2010. And a few years later, they realized it was not working for them. So they had a referendum. And they went back on that decision. And Germany decided to return to free tuition. So you see, they tried it out. And they figured out it wasn't working for the accessibility of studies. And they decided to change their mind. So I guess Quebec could do the same. For many years, we've been heading towards hiking tuition. We remind ourselves of 2012, the student strike. We were headed to increasing the tuition. It was fought back by the students. Maybe we should do it like Germany and turn around and go to free tuition. There's no objective or factual reason not to do it. The only reason not to do it is probably a reason of political views, I guess.
Well, let me ask you the question here. We hear from universities, for example, they're chronically underfunded. Isn't the government money going to them to help them fund their universities?
That is a discourse that we have to examine because universities are always complaining that they have no funding, but last year they made record profits. Of course, a bit of that is due to the pandemic, but if you look closely at the numbers, the public financing is going down and is being replaced by a proportion of private or individual spending. That means the government is paying less and less money, and individuals are paying more and more. We saw this in Canada. We saw this also in the UK. So I would say we're replacing public funding with individual funding. So the university is always going to be lacking funding, and that's also something that we're looking at in the study. We're asking, do we keep pushing for more and more funding and increasing the tuition of individual? Is that the way that we want to go towards? Can we make like a better management of resources? Do we have to finance all types of research? Isn't there a way to better use the money the university already has? For now, we're sort of in a dynamic where the university is always asking for more money and always asking consumers or students to pay more. I think there's a way out of that, and that is maybe thinking of limiting the resources we're giving to universities. Maybe degrowing the university also would be an option. So I think that in the current situation, if we keep on this track, of course, Quebec right now is not as bad as the rest of Canada or the U.S. or the U.K., but if with the pressure to imitate those countries is very strong. For example, in France, the President Macron has suggested that he would increase the tuition and start going toward more an American model. So I think that if we keep going in this direction, of course, for now, it's not so dramatic, but in the upcoming years, we could become like these countries if we're not careful. And I repeat that we are in the context of high inflation right now. Do we really want to do this while people are already struggling with other types of expenses?
Yeah. Yeah, where you lost me there is the idea of funding the universities less, because if the tuition is going to be free, there's going to be more people wanting to go because the accessibility factor is there. That's where you kind of lose me. And free tuition in Quebec, less than 1% of the total budget. Okay, but it's still $1.2 billion.
Yep.
Is it pie in the sky to hope that more people with the accessibility factor, that then they'll have better jobs and they'll pay more in taxes, so it'll come back around?
Exactly. There's two ways to do it. Either you make people pay and they get loans with banks, or you make sure they pay it later through the fiscal or taxation system. That's the way to do it.
Okay.
And the other point is that the universities right now are always asking for more funding, private funding, corporate funding. There's sort of it's endless. Yeah. So what I'm saying is that we have to examine what is the money going to the university, what is it used for? Do we want to finance all types of research, polluting research, for example, or robots? Do we need to finance that? So I think that we have to have a more general discussion about how the money is being used.
Because that could be privately funded.
Good point.
That's interesting.
Mr. Martin, I want to thank you for the time. We're out of it. Do appreciate you joining us today. Thanks so much.
Interesting.